Hey everyone, and welcome to Love Hackers, your daily dose of dating advice. I'm Alex Carter.
And I'm Sophie Tanaka.
And today we're diving deep into a dating strategy, one that's gotten a lot of buzz lately.
It's called the Scrambler Technique.
The Scrambler Technique.
Yeah, it was created by a couple of dating coaches.
Yeah.
And it's all about, creating this specific kind of mental state in a woman to trigger attraction.
Okay, so right off the bat, I got to ask, how does this Scrambler thing even work? Like, what's the psychology behind it?
So it's basically a variation of something called fractionation seduction.
Fractionation seduction.
Yeah. And the idea is to kind of put a woman on this emotional roller coaster. You create a cycle of like highs and lows.
Yeah.
And that can actually lead to a kind of addictive attachment.
So is it kind of like those studies where, people are walking off a roller coaster and they rate the attractiveness of other people higher than people who didn't just experience that rush?
Yeah, exactly. And the Scrambler basically takes that whole concept and it applies it to relationships. So you're introducing these strong emotions like fear, uncertainty, and excitement. You're basically building this mini emotional roller coaster within the dating dynamic. And like that study you mentioned from 2003, that roller coaster effect, it can really spike attraction.
Interesting. So it's not just about like being exciting, it's about strategically using those emotions to create a certain response.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And another key element of the Scrambler is the emphasis on what some people might call alpha male behavior.
Okay.
It encourages men to be more assertive, dominant, appealing to that primal attraction that some women feel towards strong, confident leaders.
Right. And I could see how that would play into, creating that emotional roller coaster. Because if she never knows what to expect, that uncertainty can definitely add to the excitement.
Oh, absolutely. And there's even research to back this up. A study from 2013 actually found that women tend to prefer soldiers who are prone to violence as short-term partners. Now, obviously, we're not advocating for violence at all.
Right.
But it just highlights the fact that, assertiveness and a degree of risk-taking can be appealing in certain contexts.
Right. Of course, it's all about finding that balance. And speaking of balance, the Scrambler also seems to push back against that whole classic nice guy persona.
Yeah. One of the core principles is that constantly trying to please a woman or being too vulnerable can actually decrease attraction.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that play out in real life. Guys who are afraid to express their needs or they shower a woman with compliments before they even really know her.
Yeah.
And they often end up friend zoned.
Exactly. And there's research on this too. One study found that women actually rated men with prideful expressions as the most attractive and those with happy expressions as the least attractive. So it seems counterintuitive, but sometimes, holding back a little bit and allowing a woman to work for your attention can actually be more effective.
So how does this all translate into real-world dating?
Right.
Let's say you're using the Scrambler technique.
Yeah.
What would that actually look like in those early stages? When you're first texting a woman.
Well, the first thing is mindset.
Okay.
You have to assume that the woman is already interested.
Okay.
And you have to believe in your own worth.
Right.
Don't get hung up on whether she responds right away.
So no more double texting or agonizing over every word, every emoji.
Exactly. Project confidence from the get-go.
Okay. I like it.
And when it comes to actually crafting those messages, the Scrambler really encourages unique openers. Ditch the generic, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Instead, ask a question that's related to her dating profile or mention something specific that caught your eye.
Something that shows you're actually paying attention.
Yeah.
And not just sending out mass messages.
Right. Make her think. Pique her curiosity. And once you've got that conversation flowing, don't be afraid to be unpredictable. Share a funny story, tell a joke, or even, playfully challenge her perspective a little bit.
So it's about being engaging, keeping her on her toes, making sure your texts stand out from all the boring messages she's probably getting.
Exactly. And it all ties back into that emotional roller coaster. Unpredictability creates excitement, keeps her guessing. She won't know what to expect from you next, which makes your interactions a lot more compelling. Think about it. Would you rather read a text that says, had a long day, you, or one that says, just rescued a baby squirrel from a rabid chihuahua. What's your most daring rescue story?
Okay, yeah, definitely the squirrel story. That's way more interesting, and it's a much better way to start a conversation.
Right. It shows personality, a sense of adventure, willingness to be different.
Yeah.
And these are all qualities the Scrambler encourages.
This is all making a lot of sense. So we've covered kind of the mindset behind scrambler texting and the importance of like crafting those unique and unpredictable messages.
Right.
Is there anything else our listeners should keep in mind when it comes to texting with this technique?
Yeah, one last crucial point. Don't be needy.
Okay.
Have a life outside of texting.
Right.
And let that reflect in your messages. If a woman doesn't respond right away or declines a date,
Yeah.
don't dwell on it. Your worth is not tied to her response.
Okay. So basically, play it cool.
Yeah.
Be confident. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. It's about having a healthy detachment and focusing on building a fulfilling life for yourself. Regardless of whether or not any particular woman is interested, that kind of self-assuredness, it's incredibly attractive.
This has been super insightful, Sophie. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this scrambler technique.
Yeah, absolutely. Texting is just one small piece of the puzzle.
So listeners, stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll explore how to apply the scrambler throughout the entire dating process.
Welcome back to Love Hackers.
Your daily dose of dating advice, where we're uncovering the secrets of the scrambler technique.
I'm Sophie Tanaka.
And I'm Alex Carter.
Last time we broke down kind of the psychology, driving the scrambler. That's strategic use of emotional highs and lows.
Yeah.
And the appeal of that alpha male confidence.
Right, and we even gave some practical texting tips for, those early stages of dating. But texting is just the first step.
Exactly. So now we're moving on to that crucial first date. You've piqued her interest with your scrambler texting skills.
Right.
Now it's time to make that in-person impression.
Okay, so first date strategy time. What does the scrambler approach look like here?
Well, remember that roller coaster principle we talked about?
Yeah.
Injecting those strong emotions, fear, uncertainty, excitement.
So you mean instead of like the typical dinner and a movie?
Exactly. Think outside the box. Something unconventional. Something that gets the adrenaline pumping.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Go-karting, rock climbing, even a haunted house.
Whoa, a haunted house on a first date. That's bold. But I see your point. It's not just about the activity itself.
Right.
It's about the emotions it triggers.
Right. You're creating this shared experience that's both memorable and a little nerve-wracking. It builds a sense of vulnerability and shared excitement, which can really amplify attraction.
Plus, it gives you plenty to talk about afterward. So what did you think of that chainsaw-wielding clown?
Exactly. Now, another key scrambler principle for first dates is to be unpredictable.
Keep her guessing, right?
Precisely. Don't be afraid to switch things up. Maybe start with a casual coffee date.
Okay.
Then surprise her with a spontaneous walk through a park or a trip to, a hidden speakeasy.
So it's about breaking away from that standard dating script.
Yeah.
And showing her that you're not afraid to take risks and have fun.
Exactly. It shows you're thinking on your feet and creates a sense of spontaneity that can be very attractive.
This is all great for, those early stages. But what about after that first date? The scrambler isn't just about getting a second date.
Right.
It's about building a relationship that's both exciting and fulfilling.
Absolutely. It's about keeping that spark alive long term.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we avoid falling into a predictable routine once that initial excitement fades?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes people make is becoming too complacent in a relationship. They fall into a routine, the excitement fizzles out, and suddenly they're taking each other for granted.
So the key is to keep things fresh and exciting, even after you've been dating for a while.
Exactly. And that's where the scrambler continues to be relevant. It encourages you to keep injecting those elements of surprise and unpredictability into the relationship.
So no more Netflix and chill every Friday night?
Well, not every Friday night. Spice things up. Plan a weekend getaway, try a new restaurant together, take up a new hobby as a couple.
Okay.
Think back to those first date principles, creating shared experiences that evoke strong emotion.
It's about keeping her on her toes and reminding her why she fell for you in the first place.
Precisely. Now remember, the scrambler is also about embracing that alpha energy.
So that means being decisive, taking the lead, planning dates.
Yes, but it's not about being controlling or domineering. It's about showing her that you're confident and capable, that you're not afraid to take charge and make decisions.
It's a subtle but important distinction.
It is.
But what about those inevitable tricky moments in a relationship? The disagreements, the arguments, the conflicts that inevitably arise.
That's where things get really interesting, because the scrambler can actually help you navigate those challenges in a way that strengthens your bond.
Really? How so?
Remember the whole idea of creating emotional roller coasters? Well, that same principle can be applied to conflict resolution.
So instead of sweeping issues under the rug or avoiding confrontation.
Exactly. You address them head on, but in a way that's both assertive and playful. You use those moments of tension to create a deeper connection.
I see. It's about showing her that you're not afraid of a little conflict and that you can handle it with maturity and even humor.
Precisely. Instead of shutting down or getting defensive, you acknowledge her feelings, validate her perspective, and then offer your own in a way that's respectful but firm.
It's about finding that sweet spot between being too agreeable and being overly confrontational.
Exactly. And remember, even during disagreements, the Scrambler encourages you to maintain your alpha energy.
So stay calm, confident, and in control of your emotions.
That's right. Because that's what a true alpha male does. He doesn't let his emotions get the best of him. He stays grounded and leads the way, even when things get tough.
It's all starting to make sense. But I have to admit, I'm still a little wary of this whole emotional roller coaster thing. It sounds a bit manipulative.
I understand your hesitation, but think about it this way. Life itself is a roller coaster full of ups and downs.
Okay, I can see that.
And relationships are no different. Embracing those emotional fluctuations is actually healthy. It's about riding the waves together instead of trying to control them.
And using those moments of intensity to create a bond that's even stronger.
That's the power of the Scrambler. It's not about manipulation. It's about leveraging the natural ebb and flow of emotions to build a more passionate and enduring connection.
Wow, this has been really eye-opening, Sophie. But we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have, and I think it's time for a quick recap before we move on to our final thoughts.
Sounds good. Let's remind our listeners of the key takeaways from the Scrambler technique, especially as it relates to first dates and building a strong connection.
All right, so first up, remember to embrace your alpha energy.
That means being confident, assertive, and decisive.
Don't be afraid to take the lead, plan dates, and express your desires.
But also be respectful of her feelings and boundaries.
Next up, keep things unpredictable.
Plan exciting dates, surprise her with thoughtful gestures, keep her guessing.
And don't be afraid to inject a little humor and playfulness into your interactions. Remember, relationships should be fun.
Now, when it comes to conflict resolution,
Don't shy away from disagreements.
address them head on, but with maturity and respect.
Use those moments of tension to create a deeper connection. Remember, conflict can actually be an opportunity for growth.
And finally, remember that life is an emotional roller coaster.
Embrace the ups and downs. Ride the waves together.
That's how you build a relationship that's both passionate and enduring.
Well said. We've covered a lot, but there's one more crucial aspect of the Scrambler we need to discuss, and that's maintaining your own sense of self throughout the dating process. We'll delve into that after a quick break.
Welcome back to Love Hackers.
Your daily dose of dating advice.
I'm Alex Carter.
And I'm Sophie Tanaka.
As promised, we're back to wrap up our deep dive into the Scrambler technique.
We've explored, its psychological underpinnings, the strategies for texting and first dates,
Right.
and even how to navigate conflict using those principles.
But there's one crucial element we haven't touched on yet, and it's something I think a lot of guys might struggle with.
We're talking about maintaining your own sense of self throughout the dating process, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Scrambler is all about, becoming a more attractive and confident man.
Right.
But it's not about losing yourself
Yeah.
in the pursuit of a relationship.
Because ultimately, the most magnetic quality you can possess is authenticity.
Right. Being true to your values, your goals, the things that make you uniquely you.
And while the Scrambler encourages you to step outside your comfort zone and embrace that alpha energy,
It's important to remember that you don't need to fundamentally change who you are at your core.
the Scrambler is a tool to help you become the best version of yourself,
Right.
not to transform you into someone you're not.
So as you're experimenting with these techniques,
Always check in with yourself.
make sure your actions align with your values,
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to adjust your approach if something feels inauthentic.
True confidence comes from being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And that kind of genuine self-assuredness, it's incredibly attractive.
It's like you said earlier, Sophie, life is a roller coaster,
It is.
and relationships are no different.
Exactly. And trying to force yourself into a mold that doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
it's only going to create more turbulence down the line.
So find that sweet spot
Yeah.
between using the Scrambler to enhance your dating life
Right.
and staying true to who you are.
Because ultimately, the goal isn't just to attract any woman.
Right.
It's to attract the right woman.
Yeah.
The one who appreciates you for all the amazing qualities you already possess.
Well said, Sophie. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
But before we sign off, I do want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, what's that?
The Scrambler technique can be a powerful tool.
Yeah.
But it's not a guarantee of success.
Right.
Dating is a complex and unpredictable journey. And there will be times when things don't go your way.
Oh, for sure.
Setbacks are part of the process, and they don't diminish your worth or your potential for finding love.
Right.
So don't get discouraged if you encounter challenges. Learn from your experiences, keep putting yourself out there, and trust that the right person will come along.
Someone who appreciates you for who you truly are, Scrambler techniques or not.
Beautifully put, Alex. So to all our listeners out there, remember, be confident, be authentic, and never stop learning.
That wraps up our deep dive into the Scrambler technique. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit life-changing.
We're Alex Carter.
And Sophie Tanaka.
And this has been Love Hackers, your daily dose of dating advice.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with your friends.
Until next time, happy dating, everyone.